Good evening, ladies, and welcome to another edition of Torah Anytime, and for joining us here at Ohel Sarah. It's so good of you to join us again. We're so happy that you're tuning in. We've had tremendous success with these series on Shalom Bayit. All of you guys are writing into us. Keep writing. I love your comments and your questions. I love when people send me feedback because I know that you're listening and it's making a difference in your life. We're going to, by the way, I have one announcement. Be'ezrat Hashem, on December 3rd, I am hosting a small Hanukkah gathering for women. Anyone who's in the Brooklyn area or around the Brooklyn area or even on the outskirts, even in New Jersey, whatever it is, and you want to join us, we have an amazing program scheduled for that night. There's going to be a parva buffet, and I'm going to be giving some divrei chizuk. There's going to be a little bit of music, and also we have the amazing story of Devorah Esther Ivel, who is a Gioret, who found out while she was researching her family history that she was actually a descendant of the Anusim, of those Spanish Jews in Spain that unfortunately had to undergo the Inquisition. So we would love for you to attend and hear her amazing, amazing story. You're going to be fascinated by it. So if you'd like to attend and you want to reserve your place, please call the Ohel Sarah office at 347-430-5700 or email us at info@ohelsarah.com. Thank you so much, and we'll begin. We are continuing our class on a woman's characteristics, part 2. In the last class, we discussed the idea of distance versus closeness. We discussed the element of vayishan and the various tips that you could utilize from that word. And now we're going to learn the meaning of the words selo ezer kenegdo, which means that Hashem said, I will create a helpmate opposite him. From these words, one could presume that it's the wife who's here to help the man and not the opposite. Selo ezer kenegdo. This is something that a man should be aware of and know. Your wife came to this world in order to help you. The woman should also know this. Everything that is you, your personality, ladies, your traits and your strengths were given to you for the sake of your husband. And your role is to be a helpmate. The question is, what does it mean that a woman came down to this world in order to help her husband? Does that mean that a woman is here to cook and clean and iron and launder and bring kids into the world and organize the house for you, for the men out there? No, because all of those things you can do together. There are no designated chores that belong only to a woman. That's not the reason why your wife came down to the world. If the baby needs a change of diapers, you could also change him. If your wife isn't feeling well and the dishes are piled up in the sink, you could also wash them. The household is an equal partnership. So how then does a woman help her husband? Chachamim say she came down to this world in order to shape his characteristic and personality. Your wife came down to this world to soften your edges and organize your big balagan, to elevate you into a better man, a man that's higher on the ladder of spirituality today than he was the day before. Men shouldn't be offended by this because this is the truth. You shouldn't be offended. A woman is on a higher spiritual plane than you are. That's why she was created to help you, and not that you were created to help her. It doesn't say ezer kenegda. Now, if you're going to ask, where is it written that a woman is on a higher spiritual level than a man? For the answer, we have to look into HaKadosh Baruch Hu's instruction manual. See, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam, it says, Vayomer Elokim na'aseh Adam b'tzalmenu kidmotenu. And Hashem said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. In this pasuk, the word na'aseh, let us make, that's the lashon that's used. But when Hashem created the woman, the pasuk says something else. It says, E'eseh lo ezer kenegdo. I will make for him a helpmate opposite him. When the woman was created, HaKadosh Baruch Hu used the word of E'eseh, I will make. Which word is more personal? Na'aseh or E'eseh? E'eseh, I will make. That's more personal, that's closer. It's not the masses, it's one singular individual. The great Maharal of Prague, Alav Shalom, teaches us that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the woman and he used the word E'eseh, I will make, Hashem brought her closer to him in the sense that a woman was created spiritually loftier than a man. That makes a woman closer to Hashem than a man. Therefore, she can help a man more than he can help her. And where can we see that she's indeed closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu than man is? We see this in her gentle demeanor, in her gentle soul. That's the reason why a woman is more sensitive than a man. That's the reason why she's more refined than a man, softer than a man. Even her facial features are more polished. For that reason, a woman is more emotional. She has a broader and bigger imagination. She's extremely enthusiastic. She's extremely animated. That's because she's closer to Hashem. But because man is further away from Hashem, he's less refined and he's more harsh. He's physically stronger, a little bit more serious. He doesn't cry as easily. He's less emotional. He's not as animated or enthusiastic about things. He's more rigid. And I'll prove it to you that what I'm saying is true. I'm not saying it, the Chachamim are saying it. I'm just giving you over the material, but I'm going to prove to you that it's true. If you study the statistics of the population of the world, you're going to discover that there are many more women than there are men. We could easily say that there are at least twice the amount of women in the world than there are men. But interestingly, based on these statistics, who are the ones that commit more crimes, men or women? It's the men. Why? Why? If there are twice as many women in the world than there are men, why isn't there at least a ratio of 50-50 when it concerns a crime? You know why? Because whatever crime a man is capable of committing, generally speaking, a woman is not capable of doing it because she's closer to Hashem than he is. The Maharal says that a man has animalistic traits in him. He even goes so far, the Maharal, as to call man a pere adam, a wild man. Man has a very strong yetzer. A man wants to feel powerful, wants to feel the conqueror. A woman is not that way. The Maharal says that the term pere adam, that term cannot be conjugated into the feminine. Pere adam can only be said in the male conjugation, belashon zachar, and there's no way of transforming it into the feminine conjugation, into lashon nekeva. One man once said, it's not true. What about the para aduma? She's a little cute, but no, pere adam cannot be para aduma. But why is this true? Because a woman isn't capable of being wild in most cases. By nature, she's not rough. Women are more refined, and therefore we have to touch upon a subject that may not be so pleasant, but you have to know that the inner tzniut of a woman is higher than the tzniut of a man. Now, a man could debate this and say, excuse me, but I think you are sorely mistaken here. If you take a walk around the block, you're going to notice that men are dressed more refinedly and more dignified and more tsanua than the women these days. Look what's going on. So I'm talking about tzniut levels. We're more tsanua than them. Here's the mistake that men make when we discuss this idea. we're not addressing the external modesty. We're talking about tzniut pnimi. We're talking about inner modesty. Internally, the women are more modest than the men. In general, their thoughts are cleaner than that of a man's. A man's thoughts are not as clean as a woman's thoughts. Chachamim tell us that men have what's called hirhurei avera. They have thoughts of sinning. And that's saying it nicely, by the way, v'amevin yavin. I'll give you an example of how much Chachamim agree with this idea. You and your husband attend a religious wedding. There is a mechitza in the center of the room, a divider. Halachically, from a halachic standpoint, is a man allowed to look over the mechitza into the ladies section and watch the women dance? Yes or no? No. Is a woman allowed to look over the mechitza and watch the men dance? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. That's odd. What happened to equal rights? Why are we allowed to look at them, but they're not allowed to look at us? You know why? Because when a woman sees a man dance, she only sees the dancing and she enjoys the dancing. Her mind works differently. She sees a guy across the partition and she's already thinking who she could set him up with, which one of her friends. That's a woman. But a man who sees a woman dancing, especially if that woman is dressed immodestly, especially if she's dancing provocatively, his mind takes him away from the wedding hall and he's already in the islands of the Bahamas. That's what it is. I'll give you an example that concerns the singles out there. And I know a lot of single girls are listening to this, so it's good for you. Take a single girl who meets a single boy over a Shabbat table. Sometimes it happens. What is she thinking? She's thinking, he's very cute. Oh, it could be so nice if we could go out for a cup of coffee or a piece of cake, maybe on Motzei Shabbat, and we could sit and talk about life and the trees and the birds. And he's the kind of guy that I'd love to be standing next to as we visit Niagara Falls and take pictures. And wouldn't it be nice if he would even compliment me, or if I knew that he likes me? You see where her head is at? Compliments, the sunset, the trees, Niagara Falls, a cup of coffee, a piece of cake, and a pleasant discussion. But men are different. A man sees a nice girl across the table. What is he really thinking? A cup of coffee and a piece of cake is not even in his lexicon of thoughts, ladies. He sees the avera in front of his eyes. His mind is elsewhere. Chachamim tell us that. The young women out there who are dating don't understand this point. If a woman, our rabbis tell us, if a woman could read the thoughts of a man and what he's imagining about her, especially when she's dressed inappropriately, if she would know, she'd be offended. One rabbi once said that if we were able to videotape a man's thoughts as a woman passes by him, especially if she's dressed immodestly, and then if we could play back that video to that woman of what he's thinking, she would never walk out of a house again dressed inappropriately, and she would be appalled by what she would see on that video. Now, some women might ask, what? Ad kedei kach? Come on, you're exaggerating. Yes, Chachamim say ad kedei kach and worse. Worse, read the Gemara, read the stories that happened during the ancient times. But if you think about it, why would a young woman, a single girl, show up to a date with a short skirt, tight blouse, with her hair not gathered, with her hair loose? Is it because she wants the guy to want her? Is she doing this in order for him to compliment her? Is it because she wants attention? But to the single girls, I always say, look what you're ultimately telling this guy. You're telling this guy, for a nice word from you, for a little whistle and a wink, for a little bit of attention from you, I'm willing to forego my essence. I'm willing to relinquish the ultimate beauty that I possess. I'm willing to renounce my throne and pretend I'm not the daughter of the king just for that little wink. That's what you're telling the guy. How sad is that? You think that this happens because it all started as a physical manifestation or an emotional one? It comes from her emotions, because a woman has a need to feel in a very intense way. Now, we just addressed the singles out there, but let's talk about the married women. Men should know that their wives need emotional fulfillment. A woman's heart has to be filled with your love. A woman needs to feel good from inside. A woman has to feel an emotional and a spiritual connection to her husband in order to feel happy. And if she doesn't, she's not going to be happy. Just think about how much effort you have to make, the guys out there, when you're reconciling with your wife. Only after you said all your viduis, al chet shechatanu lefanecha, and you threw ashes on your head, and you bowed down accordingly, modimu mishtachavim, and you asked for forgiveness for everything that happened to you since you were born, maybe then she's willing to be appeased by you. You got to go through a lot in order to appease a woman. Why is it like that? Because their world, the world of a woman, is a world of emotions. Kula regesh. And the world of emotions requires emotions. A woman is all full of emotions. She's one big ball of emotions. That's what makes her refined. That's what makes her a woman. But you guys out there, you become this hello, emotions, yalla, no. That being said, I remind you again that it's for this reason that a woman was created to help a man. Because she's more elevated than him, she could assist him in the areas that he needs to climb higher. So that's number one. Moving on, the word ezer and the word kenegdo seem contradicting. If she's an ezer, if she's supposed to be a helpmate, she can't be kenegdo, opposite him. And if she's kenegdo, then what kind of ezer, what kind of assistance could she provide for him? Chachamim explain that there's no contradiction here. Zacha, ezer. Lo zacha, kenegdo leilachem. What does this mean? If a man is worthy, zacha, his wife becomes his helpmate. Lo zacha, if he's not worthy, she becomes his opposition. She does battle with him. What does it mean to be zoche? What does it mean to merit? How does he merit? The word zacha comes from the word zach, which means pure. If a man is going to purify himself, if he will work on having good midot, if he's not a jealous man, if he easily surrenders, he's not stingy, he's not angry, he doesn't lack compassion, he gives the time of day, he's caring, he's concerned, he's sincere, then he merits that his wife should be his helpmate. She's going to be a ezer. But if he's not worthy, then his wife does not assist him. She becomes his adversary. The man should know that if a woman is still opposing him, she's still pointing things out to him, she's still challenging him, it means that he still hasn't refined himself. It means that he's still not on the level of zacha. It means that there are certain things he's not working on. There are certain things he's still stagnant. When you're going to come to the level of zacha and do what's necessary to ensure that that happens, your wife will become your ezer. It's as simple as that. Now, Chachamim ask a question that only the men can answer. And I'm asking the men out there. Only you can answer this question. Let's say you have two friends at work. The first one, as soon as you come to work, begins to dish out compliments to you, al yamin val smol. He doesn't stop confiding you. The second one doesn't stop pointing out your flaws and all your blunders. He says to you, Shimon, what happened to you? Wipe your nose, tuck your shirt in, wipe your mouth, fix your tie, sit up straight. By the way, you forgot to tie your shoelaces. Don't chew so loud, it's not nice. Eat with your mouth closed. Oh. To the men I ask, and you have to be very, very honest with yourselves out there. Which friend do you have to prefer? Listen to that question. Which friend do you have to prefer? The one who makes you feel good and compliments you all the time, or the one who points out your flaws? It's the one who points out your flaws. Why? Because although you love the friend who's constantly complimenting you because you feel good to hear that you're so wonderful, but it could very well be that the friend who keeps dishing out all those compliments is doing so for his best interest. He's patting you on the back and he's making you feel good in order for him to feel comfortable to ask something when the time will come. The other friend tells you point blank, without cutting corners, what areas of life you need to correct. And he's doing it for your own good. You should know that a man who's always complimented and feels so great with himself is going to have a problem, because he's not going to see the deep pit that's ahead of him. And one day he's going to stumble straight into that pit, and it's going to be very hard for him to climb out of it. The friend who points things out to you is the one who truly loves you. Your wife is the friend who makes you aware of what needs to be fixed. And she does that in order to light up your path so that your journey through life will be a smoother one. A woman came down to this world with a spiritual flashlight, and she shines it for you, and she says, Shimon, be careful where you're going. Shimon, watch your step. You know why your wife married you? It was for your Ilui Neshama. It was to raise you higher and make you worthy. And again, don't take it personally, you guys out there, because many men think that if a woman pointed something out to them, it diminishes their honor, and then it affects their pride. But the opposite is true, and we could learn this from the Gaon of Vilna, alav shalom. The Gaon of Vilna wasn't just a Talmid Chacham Atzum. He wasn't just a mere giant in Torah learning. He was a tzaddik. He was on a very high level of spirituality, and yet, with all his greatness, with all the learning, he hired somebody who he called HaMochiach, the one who proves. What was the Mochiach's job? His job was to spend the entire day escorting the Gaon of Vilna and to observe his every move. And then at the end of the day, the Gaon of Vilna would sit with this man and he would ask him, tell me, where did I go wrong today? He didn't say, where did I go right? He said, where did I go wrong? And then this Mochiach pointed out the little minor indiscretions that needed correcting. And then the Gaon of Vilna would do tshuva on the items that he needed to correct so that they shouldn't repeat themselves. Can you imagine? The Gaon was willing to pay money for someone to point out his errors so that he could correct them. A husband should be happy because his wife does that for free. You have to know that a woman was born with a very strong sense of being able to criticize. And she has that sense because that's the only way that you'll rise in levels of spirituality. Hidden beneath her criticism is a blessing in disguise. Your wife points things out to you because she cares about you. She makes you aware of certain things because she wants you to benefit from it. She wants to strengthen the relationship between you, and she yearns to be close to you and to feel that closeness as a natural occurrence of life and not something that's forced or because she's used to you or because someone is telling her just do it. She wants to feel that naturally. Don't you want that feeling in her to be genuine? You think her feelings are automatically ignited concerning you? They could be if you follow this advice. But if you're not going to follow the advice and you're going to continue on your path and you continue through life being the same person you've always been, you're never going to achieve the ultimate oneness with your wife. Instead, you're going to wake up one morning asking yourself, does she love me as much as I love her? You're going to feel like the victim. You're going to end up feeling like the poor guy who was a good husband, who didn't get from his wife what he really deserved. But really, it's the poor wife. How could she love you on the level that you want her to when you just don't want to change? You simply don't want to learn. You simply don't want to correct. You just don't. And even when you're given advice, you don't take it. You just do what you want. I'm going to say it again to the guys out there. It's so easy for you out there to make a minor adjustment in order to create a better marriage. And I find it incredible. You guys stay so stubborn. You could have such a beautiful relationship if you'd only be willing to listen to the words that your wife shares with you. If you'd only listen to the advice that we're giving you. A woman once shared with me that she doesn't feel an attraction to her husband. And that no matter how many times she tries to buy him certain clothing so that he could appear a little bit more appealing to her, no matter how many times she reminds him to put on a little bit of cologne so she should be able to feel comfortable to approach him all on her own, he just doesn't want to comply. I mean, think about it. When are men willing to put on a nice shirt on Shabbat? When does a man suddenly remember that he owns the cologne? You know on which day. On the day that he knows his wife is scheduled to go to the mikveh. What, are you kidding me? I find it very interesting that you remember the cologne on the day of the mikveh and then you conveniently forget it all the other weeks. Why do you fight with your wife when all she's trying to do is strengthen your relationship and turn you into a husband who truly cares? A guy who goes out of his way only on the day of the mikveh, that he suddenly smells nice, pitom, he's sending nice messages, pitom, he's bringing flowers, that man is a selfish man. Because really he's looking out for his best interest. He wants his wife to be happy with him because he wants to get something out of her on that day. It's not about her, it's about him. So try truly caring about your wife and what makes her happy. You know how your wife is your ezer? When at times she has to be kenegdo. There are times she has to negate you in order for you to understand that you're mistaken, that you're not seeing things appropriately, that you're about to fall into a deep pit. And I do want to point out that men don't understand the great damage they cause for themselves when they don't listen. And then they fall into a pit. And then their wives have to find out about it. Tell me, what do you think you achieved? You think she sees you as the hero when you're in that pit? All she sees is a man who didn't listen and failed. It's hard for a woman to respect a man who's constantly making mistakes because he doesn't want to listen. Ezer, she's here to help you, kenegdo, by sometimes taking the opposing side and helping you complete yourself. So now we're going to explore how it is exactly that a woman completes her husband. We learned earlier that a woman is more sensitive, that she comes from the world of regesh, the world of emotions. Therefore, many of her decisions are based on emotions. Whereas by a man, his decisions and his primary function is that of the sechel. He works with the mind. His decisions are mainly based on sechel. It's the intellect with very little emotion in the equation. Now let's learn how it is that the emotion, the regesh, completes the sechel, the intellectuality. So first of all, the regesh completes the sechel in the area of details. That means that regesh doesn't despair from the minute details of life. A woman has all the patience in the world to discuss and point out the most minute details of everything she speaks about. But a man's patience ends when he has to hear or deal with all the details. That's where his patience ends. He doesn't have time for this. And you could see this difference in their nature in the things they can and cannot do. A woman could sit with 7 balls of yarn and a crochet needle, and she could start crocheting a beautiful blanket with all its colorful details. And while she's doing that with 7 balls of yarn, she could look up every few seconds to see if the kids are okay, to see if the picture on the wall is still straight, if the water came to a boil in the kitchen. She could do all of this because she has patience for all the surrounding details. Try giving a man just 1 ball of yarn and a needle. He sits there forever. He looks up for a second. He can't. He's got to look back down at the ball of yarn. And then after like 2 minutes, he throws it on the recliner and runs away. He can't handle these kinds of details. Give a man a Jeep, a cell phone, a little construction project, and he's good to go. But to pick up a needle and thread and put the thread through the needle, he can't. Why not? Why not? Because a man's focus and his strengths are on what we call the macro world. It's in all the big things. He can deal with the big items of life. A woman, on the other hand, is busy with the micro world. She's always micromanaging everything and everyone, and that's the point. Because at the point where a man loses his patience for the minute details, for the world of the micro, that's where the wife comes into the picture and picks up the pieces. So let me give you an example. A woman just finished mopping the floor. After she mops the floor, is she going to put the chairs that she put on top of the table back down onto that floor? Never, never. First, she's going to wait for the floor to dry, right? You know this. Ladies, did you ever see a man waiting for a floor to dry? He can't wait. He'll almost always find a way to walk around that floor, even if he has to walk on the corners of the floor, but he doesn't have the patience to wait. Now, 20 minutes later, the floor is finally dry, and now the woman, with the utmost patience, starts to put the chairs back in their place, right? After she puts the chairs back, she looks at them to make sure they're straight, right? If they're not, she's going to fix them. Then she puts on the tablecloth on top of the table. And then she puts a runner on top of that tablecloth. And then she puts a plastic protective layer on top of the runner, on top of the tablecloth, so that it shouldn't get dirty. On top of the plastic, she's going to put napkins, and the napkins are going to go into those beautiful napkin holders that she's going to take 5 minutes to decide which one she's going to use. And then she puts the glasses on the table. Each person gets his own glass. And then in the glasses, she puts more napkins that she patiently designs every week in another way. And then she puts the plates and the cutlery on the table. And she searches the entire house for the perfect vase to grace that table. And then she puts the water in the vase. And then, of course, we've got to put pennies in the water because she heard that they preserve the flowers. And then she puts the vase with the flowers and the pennies in the center of the table. Is she finished yet? Oh, no, not by far. She's got to take that step back. And she's standing there for a full minute eyeing her beautiful work. And then what happens? She starts all over again, redesigning, switching things around, putting the vase somewhere else, changing the seats, changing the napkins. She has all the patience in the world. You know this. A man, as far as he's concerned, the table isn't even necessary. What do we need a table for? Let's just sit everybody on the floor, on pillows. The table's just one big piece of wood that's constantly getting in his way, that's all. That's the table for a man. As far as he's concerned, throw the napkins on the center of the table, just put all the cutlery in the center of the table, all the glasses in the center of the table, and let's have a buffet. That's a guy. I'll give you another scenario. One night, your husband falls asleep on the couch while you are cleaning up the kitchen before going to bed. It's already 11 o'clock, and you wake him up from the couch so that both of you can make your way to the bedroom for a good night's sleep. Of course, he wakes up a little disoriented from his nap, and both of you make your way down the hallway. As you're passing the hallway, you, Giveret, notice that one of the paintings on the wall is crooked. Will you stop in the hallway at 11 o'clock to straighten that painting, yes or no? Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Worse, you're going to ask your husband to straighten the picture while you stand there telling him, Shimon, Shimon, a little bit to the right. La, 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 smola, smola, to the left. Ladies, the poor guy is chalashing to go to sleep, and you have all the patience in the world at 11 o'clock to straighten out the crooked painting on the wall. You see how much patience a woman has? This is a hafla v'felek, guys out there who are listening. The difference between a man and a woman, if we go back to the example of mopping the floor, is the following. If a man would have to mop the floor, what does he do? He simply fills up a bucket with like a quarter of the way with water, because he tries to preserve as much water as he can from the world. The world needs water. And then he puts 2 drops, bloop, bloop, of cleaning liquid into that bucket. And then he spills all the water onto the floor at once, and he starts to mop. It takes him 10 minutes to mop the floor. Why? Did he pick up the chairs to put them on the table? No. Did he mop under the table? No. Did he mop under the couch? No. The difference between a man and a woman is that the man wants to give the appearance that the house is clean. The difference between a man and a woman, if we can say it in Hebrew, is that the man רוצה שהבית ייראה נקי, והאישה רוצה שזה יהיה נקי. In English, it's the following. The difference between a man and a woman is that the man wants to give the appearance that the house is clean, but a woman wants the house to be clean. There's a difference. It's 2 completely different worlds, 2 different mindsets. It's indeed a wonder of wonders. But the idea is that at the point of frustration in a man where he's losing his patience, that's where the woman's patience kicks in and takes over. That's why it's very important for women to realize that they shouldn't become upset at their husbands when their husbands don't have the same patience they do. A man doesn't have patience for details. So you came down to this world to fill in his blanks. All those details that he doesn't have patience for, you fulfill them. And to the men I say, that this is what it means, ezer kenegdo. Your wife is helping you in the areas of life where you're the opposite of who she is. That's kenegdo. So I want to conclude this class with a question. Who has a greater ability to endure suffering? A man or a woman? A woman. Isn't that interesting? Because who's the one with all the muscles? Who's the one that's supposed to show strength? Who's the hero? Who's the one that we always think is the hero? The man, right? Who's the one who's the sensitive one? The one who cries effortlessly? The one who's fragile and breaks down easily? The one who frequently becomes offended? Who? A woman. And yet, interestingly, she can endure more suffering than he can. Why? Chachamim explain that a woman's neshama, her inside, is built in such a way that she could endure a lot more suffering than a man. A man breaks more quickly than a woman. Why? We said that an ish is sechel, intellect. That means that he's making various calculations, and when he gets to a certain conclusion, if it's not the conclusion that he likes, he can break down. For example, if a man sees a therapist and they discuss the marriage and his wife and her characteristics, the man makes his calculated remarks and then he draws his conclusion. What's his conclusion? Doctor, you mean to tell me that this is the way it's always going to be? Like this? And the doctor says, yeah. He just hears the word yes and the guy falls apart. But a woman, she doesn't even ask that question. She already knows that it's yes. She already knows this is the way of the world. This is life. This is how it's always going to be. And I'm going to have to deal with it and make the best of it. V'zeu. Of course, again, I'm always speaking about a normal, standard marriage. I'm not talking about the yotzim min haklal. I'm not talking about the exceptions to the rule, the abusive marriages, the horrible marriages out there. I'm not talking about those. So let me give you an example of the idea that we're talking about, and we see this directly from the Torah HaKdosha. 3,300 years ago, the Jews were slaves to Paro in Egypt. Notice how the name Paro is written. Pei, Resh, Ayin, Hey. If you read the name Paro from left to right, it reads Ha'oref, which means the harsh one, tough one, Ha'oref. Paro was very rough. He was a harsh ruler. For 210 years, our ancestors labored for Paro under the most difficult conditions, and the labor was excruciating. What happened? Paro noticed that the Jews are multiplying in great numbers. We're told that a woman would give birth to 6 babies at a time. To the men I ask, after 6 births, how many children do you have? 36. It's not a family anymore. It's an organization. You have to buy a bus to take them to school every morning. You know what it means to get 36 kids dressed in the morning? By the time you get kid number 36 dressed, all the other ones are already coming home from school. You understand? Paro saw this and he felt, well, this is too much. The Jews are going to become so great in numbers that they may rebel and overthrow me. What did he do? He sat with his Egyptian cabinet members, and they came to the conclusion that if the Jews are multiplying in such abundance, it must mean that they have tremendous powers in the area of Pirya, Verivya, in being fruitful and multiplying. So he decided to remove this power from them. But how is he going to achieve this? The Pasuk in Sefer Shemot says, Vaya'avidu Mitzrayim et bnei Yisrael bafarech. Paro decided to increase their labor and make it even more difficult. He was thinking, the husband's going to work for 20 hours a day. The woman is going to work for 16 hours a day. And when they come home, the only thing they're going to want to do is sleep and do nothing else. Now, Paro's plan almost worked until it backfired on him. What happened? The Pasuk says, V'kasher ya'anu oto, ken yirbe v'chen yifrotz. But as much as the Egyptians would afflict Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, the more they multiplied and the more they gained strength. Says the Midrash concerning these words, through his decree of harsh labor, he managed Paro to break the spirit of the Jewish man. When the men came home from work, indeed, they were exhausted and they didn't have the strength for anything else. Men out there, you're going to learn the resilience and the faith of a woman right now. What did the women do? They made a simple calculation. They said to themselves, if there are no children, there will be no continuation. If there is no continuation, what will remain of Am Yisrael? If there's no continuity, we will slowly vanish from the face of the earth. What did the women decide to do? They decided to awaken in their husbands the desire to be intimate with them despite the challenges of the times. How did they achieve this? What they did was, as you know, the women used to come home earlier than the men. And although they came home exhausted from a day's work in the fields, they didn't nap. They didn't crash on their sofas. They thought to themselves, a mitzvah is a mitzvah. They removed their work clothing and they adorned the most beautiful dresses. They put on makeup. They combed their hair. And then they waited for their husbands to arrive. When a woman's husband came home, she would take the copper vessel that was used as a mirror and she would raise it and she would show it to him and she would say, Shimon, who's more beautiful, me or you? And he'd smile and he'd say, Miriam, it's you, of course. And then she'd raise the mirror again and she'd say, do you know, Shimon, that you're also beautiful? Look at you. You're so good. You're so beautiful. And he'd say, no, Miriam, you are. And she'd say, no, you are. No, you are, Miriam. Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until there was Pirou Revu. Who made these children come down to the world? The women. Says the Zohar Kadosh, during the exile of Mitzrayim, the men were of broken spirit, but the women maintained their spirit and gave strength to their husbands. In the merit of these women, armies of children were born during the darkest period of history for the Jews. But what happened? Paro sees that his decree isn't working. It's backfiring on him. And that's when he issued the cruelest decree of all, to murder the male infants and to throw them into the Nile River. And now thousands of little babies were being thrown into this river. Do you know what this gzera, what this decree did to the Jewish men? It completely broke their spirit. The first one with a broken spirit was Amram, the leader of the generation. And he issued a takana that every man should divorce his wife in order to avoid this tragedy from taking place. Look how a man's mind works. Look how he calculates things. If we're going to bring children into this world and that baby is going to be thrown into the Nile, that renders the situation pikuach nefesh. If it's pikuach nefesh, we have to get divorced. That's how his mind works. How he got there, I don't know. But all the men divorced their wives because of Amram's halachic ruling. So who was it that reunited Amram with his wife Yocheved? A 5-year-old girl named Miriam. Miriam told her father, Abba, Paro decreed that every male child should be thrown into the Nile, but the girls can still remain alive. At least there are girls among us. But by you divorcing mommy, but by you divorcing Ima, neither male babies nor female babies are being created. So your ruling, Abba, is worse than Paro's. Not only that, but Abba, you have to believe that we're not going to remain here in Egypt forever. We have a prophetic promise that one day we're going to leave this place and journey to Eretz Yisrael. And we're going to leave this place as a free nation. Miriam's entire speech, these words, Abba, have faith because we're going to leave this place one day. Have emunah. This speech, is it coming from the world of sechel, of intellect, or regesh, or emotions? It's the world of regesh, of emotions. Do you now realize the power of a woman's emotions? A woman's spirit isn't easily broken. Miriam helped to facilitate the Geulah, the redemption, because Amram remarried Yocheved and Moshe Rabbeinu was born from that union. The Redeemer was born. This is the power of the world of femininity. In the merit of the women, we have the zechut of sitting here today, listening to a shiur Torah and Shalom Bayit, and elevating ourselves all the more. In the merit of righteous women, we left Egypt and we journeyed towards Har Sinai to receive the Torah that we are learning today. Do you see the power of a woman? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, בזכות נשים צדקניות נגאלו אבותינו ממצרים ובזכותן עתידין להיגאל. It's in the merit of righteous women that our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt, and it will be in their merit that we're going to be redeemed when the Mashiach comes. So the men out there have to know that their wives have great emotional strengths. The woman has the ability to give birth. A man can't, because he wouldn't be able to deal with everything that concerns the pregnancy from beginning and until the labor and even after the labor. A woman has the capacity to overcome any challenge of life, and this, the men have to know, is a tremendous power that they possess. A woman is able to raise and educate the children, which isn't an easy task, and her spirit doesn't break. Ever see a man handling a child? How long can a guy put his kid on his lap and read him a story? How animated is the story that he reads the kid? Does he just read the story? Does he ask the kid questions? Does he create excitement in the child? Take a kid, put him on the grandfather's lap. Very nice, 2-3 minutes. Ha ha ha, very cute. Goodbye. Zeo. A woman has tremendous strengths that a man has to appreciate a lot more than he does. A man has to place his wife on a pedestal and bestow upon her the greatest honor, because she's the one who is maintaining the home. She's the one who's holding the fort together. That's the reason a woman is referred to as Akeret Habayit, because she is the ikar of the home. She's the support beam of the home. We're going to stop here, and we're going to continue Be'ezrat Hashem with part 3 of a woman's characteristic tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, next time that we meet. And I want to wish you all an amazing, amazing evening and a day filled with a lot of bracha and siyata dishmaya and hatzlacha and everything that you do. And may we merit to see Yeshuot v'nechamot bekarov mamash. Amen ken. Yehi ratzon.